Now, Section 1 identifies the pathways and barriers for disadvantaged people to access justice and enforce the rule of law. This is the first session. Now, identifying pathways. Is it that smooth? Now look, conceptually, human rights emanated from 1948 Declaration. But if I may say so, Rabindranath Tagore spoke of human rights in 1937.
I want to change the phenomenon of rule of law, but to me, as a judge, a practical judge who is facing every day in the court, I go by rule by law. So within the premise of rule of law, I felt the rule of justice, rule by law, falls within the domains. And that is being proven when you are faced most often in a court of law, when the indigent person comes before you, appears before you, when he has not having even to pay a court fees in the court. Can we waive out the court fees if a person is serving? Because the law in place is a mandatory law that we have to have a court fees. Of late, I saw that I faced one of the defendant who just committed a betting.
Chief Justice, Mr. Justice Sonam Tobgye, Chief Justice of Bhutan and President Saarclaw, Honorable Mr. Justice Kalyan Shreshtha, Judge Supreme Court of Nepal, President Saarclaw, Nepal, Honorable Mr. Justice Singh Wangchuk, Judge Supreme Court of Bhutan and President Saarclaw, Bhutan, Mr. Ali Zafar, Senior Advocate and Partner MNZ Law Firm, Judge Jangchuk Norbu, District Court, Mr. Tariful Islam, Honorable Judges of various courts, Reverend academicians from various universities, dignitaries, participants, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the organizers for providing me this platform to share my sexual violence during their lifetime. The statistics, for years the problem was considered to be a private affair, and the patriarchal society reinforced the problem under the guise of privacy. Domestic violence springs from the not so obvious currents of power and control which run beneath the relationship between
Co-chairman, fellow delegates, panelists, ladies and gentlemen. The topic, when we think about legal aid, what comes to one's mind is poverty and the need to help the poor redress their grievances, reach the court with the aid of money. That's the concept that comes to my mind. And I think I can't do better than start with the quotation from Nelson Mandela, who I think is an asset of this world. And he said, this is important to my discussion today, he said, overcoming poverty is not a gesture. 150 million in Bangladesh, which is 40%. 80 million in Pakistan, which is 45%. 42% in Nepal. We were just informed that perhaps 22.3% in Bhutan. More in them and the processes, I think there are SOPs how to do that. And I think one of the papers that perhaps you have written elaborates the process in which this can be further developed.
May I answer this?
Yes.
We at NLU-Delhi, we have 3 initiatives. We partnered with IGNU. They have a dedicated channel where we elaborated our what do we mean by legal. And twice a month, we discuss on issues like domestic violence, your rights if you are arrested, and that is telecast all over the globe. And it's a very interactive session where there is a judge, there is a professor, there is a person from the NGO, there are students. There is a 1-hour program. Second is the community radio. Many of the institutions are taking up community radios for sensitizing people about their rights.
I don't know what's happening in Bangladesh. Do they have? Do you have?
We have village codes.
Do you have village codes
We
and
have
what?
village codes and then
What?
is also there. Jurisdiction to cover.
And do you have good experiences? What about Bhutan? Do you have village courts? Are they, what kind of experiences are there? Nepal? Perhaps we can, And do women suffer from village
We did
courts?
organize an alternative dispute resolution seminar here in Thimphu, and that was the time when I think Honorable Amir handed over presidency to Dhara Vijayatillake. So we do have, in fact, in Bhutan, it has always been in our system that we call it Nankhanandi, and if you directly translate it, it's people sitting together and resolving the problem. So, as you correctly said, because if you notice while flying into Paro Valley, you would have seen remote villages and houses, but they don't really get to the court system. So normally the village elder or a monk in the village or retired officials do sit and resolve a lot of these issues. And as far as even in our laws that are there, it is mandatory on a judge to allow parties to resolve the matters.
So we have legal aid programs with the Nepal Bar Association, we provided the support for Norwegian Bar Association. That's a
jointly by Swiss and Austria. So we are trying to retain their original as well as new concepts of ADR. Now this ADR, there are 3-4 concepts. We have added that and tried to integrate into our own system. That is the indigenous, and every country will have one. And if it's successful, we will increase. But this is very localized to Bhutan. There is another concept which we are studying, most probably within 2 or 3 years' time, 1 or 2 years' time, we may have, if all other legal services fail, we are exploring a public defender's office as in some of the states in America. But before we launch into it, we would like to know see all the possibilities, how successful it has been, and if the public defender's office is of a
very high capital, and there are a lot of issues involved. As far as criminal cases are concerned, and I'm sure it is true in all of our jurisdictions, that legal aid is absolutely important, and it is being provided. In the context of Bhutan, we, as the Honorable Chief Justice has just pointed out.
And next slide. Every minute somewhere in the world, a young woman is infected with HIV. And this can be as a result of their lower economic and socio-cultural status in many countries. Women and girls are disadvantaged when it comes to negotiating safe sex and accessing HIV prevention information and services. Next slide, please. Globally, women comprise about 32% of people living with HIV, and in Asia and the Pacific, they comprise about 35% of people living with HIV. In some countries in the SAARC region, this is slightly higher. In India, for example, women account for 39% of reported HIV cases. This includes women who contract HIV through their male intimate partners, and also women who themselves engage in high-risk behaviours, such as sharing needles and syringes, and unprotected sex in the context of sex work. Next slide, please. As we have heard a lot already yesterday and today, human rights and the law impact significantly on the lives of individuals. In terms of HIV, we know that from evidence that HIV is an epidemic that is strongly gendered and relates specifically, and there were specific commitments relating to women and girls in the context of HIV response, and I've listed some of those specific commitments there. And these include addressing structural issues that contribute to that pose barriers to effective HIV responses. So gender inequality, gender-based abuse and violence, sexual exploitation of women and girls, promoting and protecting women's full enjoyment of all human rights, which includes will not be able to access those services. And so it's really a critical area for us to address in order to scale up effective HIV responses.
Thank you, Brianna. Next slide, please. Before I start I'm going to present to you some of the recent studies that we have done on violations of rights that key HIV-affected women and girls face. And before I do that, I would actually like to go through with you who are key affected women and girls in this region, because it's important to understand that not every woman is affected and impacted by HIV. So when we say key affected women, who do we mean? We mean obviously women and girls living with HIV, female sex workers and female intimate partners of male clients, women who use drugs and female partners of men who inject drugs, female partners of men who have sex with men, and women and girls from households impacted by HIV, although they may themselves not be HIV.
Dimensions in the Constitution, which later, in 1960s, they became the governance on social and political rights and economic rights.
You say that you forgot something and escape. Well, I think you all, this seems familiar. This is what handsome looks like. Okay, but this is a picture on one of my missions to Maldives in the ferry point, and was taken by one of my colleagues, and I felt that, you know, to start with one handsome hunk and end it with the handsome look would wrap up this inner desert quite well. Now,